Hello, friends. We will continue with the lecture series on human physiology in Ayurveda. Today, we will take up endocrine system and metabolism as explained in Ayurvedic literature. First of all, we will understand what is endocrine system and what is the scope of endocrinology and metabolism in the current scenario. In the earlier years, the term endocrinology was very restrictive and it used to include only hemocrine hormones, the secretions which are carried in the bloodstream and act on some target tissue. Only such hormones were included under endocrinology, like, for instance, the pituitary hormones, thyroid hormones, adrenal hormones, and so on. But nowadays, in the recent years, the scope of endocrinology has grown enormously, and now we know that endocrine system cannot be studied in isolation because there is interaction between several other systems, two systems being very important. One is nervous system and other being the immune system. That is why neuroendocrine interactions and neuroimmunoendocrine interactions are being perceived to be very, very important in maintenance of normal physiological functions in the human body. Hence, these days, many authors they include several other chemical messengers under the term endocrine hormones or endocrinology. So those include, apart from hemocrine secretions, the local hormones, for instance, the histamine or serotonin, autocrine secretions, for instance, the substances that are secreted from a cell and which ultimately act on the very same cell from which they are secreted. Such hormones or such chemicals are known as autocrine secretions. Paracrine secretions are those that act on the neighboring cell. Even the hormones of the gut, like secretin, gastrin, cholecystokinin, even the neurotransmitters also are sometimes included under endocrine system. Hence, whatever we will be discussing in this lecture will be based on such an understanding of endocrine system, and this also includes metabolism. Now, in Ayurveda, the metabolism has been explained through the terminology called Agni. And Agni has been explained in three different contexts, in the three different sets rather. One is Jatharagni, another is Bhutagni, and third one is Dhatvagni. So Jatharagni is major uh, functional entity that is responsible for the digestion of the food. That is Avasthapaka. This we have already discussed in our earlier lecture on digestive system. And second is Bhutagni. Bhutagni is indicative of intermediary metabolism, and I will explain later why do I think so. And Dhatvagni, they act at the level of tissues or cells, at the cellular level of metabolism. The Dhatvagnis are functional. So this is how we will understand the entire endocrine system and the metabolism according to Ayurveda. In Charaka, it has been mentioned that the metabolism is very, very important. Normal metabolism is important, and that is why it has been explained like Agnireva Sharire Pittantargataha Kupita Kupitaha Shubha Shubhani Karoti. The Agni is located in Pitta, and this Agni itself performs several very important functions. When it is normal or abnormal, the functions become normal or abnormal correspondingly. So, tadyatha, paktim apaktim, normal digestion and abnormal digestion. Darshanam adarshanam, normal perception of vision and abnormal vision. Matra matratvam ushmanaha, optimal temperature, body temperature, or excessive or less than normal temperature or heat. Prakriti Vikriti Varnau, the normal complexion and abnormal complexion. Shauryam, the motivation or enthusiasm to perform some activities that are usually considered to be very difficult. Bhayam, the fearfulness. Krodham is anger. Harsham is happiness. Moha is something when a person becomes unable to perceive the surroundings. And prasada is normal nutrition and normal functioning of all the sensory organs, especially. Iti evam adini cha aparani dvandvani iti. These are certain groups which are functionally opposite to each other, like pakti apakti, darshana adarshana, ushma matra and amatra of ushma, prakriti and vikriti of varna, shaurya and bhaya, krodha and harsha, similarly moha and prasada. So all these dvandva dualities are ultimately because of the normal or abnormal functioning of Agni, which acts through Pitta. So similarly, in Charaka Sutrasthana, it has been once again mentioned that the functions of Pitta or general functions of Pitta, again the same functions, almost the similar functions have been explained here also. Darshanam, Bhakti, Ushmacha, Kshut, Trishna, Dehamardavam, Prabha, Prasado, Medhacha, Pitta Karma Vikarajam. The similar functions have been explained because ultimately it is the Agni that acts through the Pitta. And if you carefully observe these functions through the perspective of contemporary biomedical sciences, you will be able to explain each of these functions through some or the other chemical processes or transformation or metabolic processes. For instance, darshana, the photochemistry of vision is very essential for normal perception, and even neurochemistry of vision is required for normal perception of vision. Pakti, the normal digestion, requires several hormones and enzymes. Ushma, the body temperature or production of heat, is ultimately dependent on the cellular level metabolism. Kshut Trishna, Kshut is the hunger, Trishna is thirst. Kshut, normal hunger, it can get excessive in cases like hyperthyroidism or in cases like diabetes mellitus. Even Trishna might become excess whenever there is excessive uh, thyroid hormones or lack of insulin. Dehamardavam, the optimal consistency of the skin and subcutaneous tissues, the mruduta, the softness of the skin and subcutaneous tissues. Again, this can become abnormal, for instance, in cases like hypothyroidism, where there is accumulation of certain metabolic products, which leads to hardening of the skin and subcutaneous tissues. Prabha, the normal complexion. Again, this can become abnormal in certain endocrine disorders. For instance, Addison's disease, the pigmentation may become abnormal. Prasado, Medhacha, again, the normal perceptive abilities of the sensory organs is called prasada. Medha is intellectual activity. Again, these functions can become hampered in certain endocrine disorders. For instance, the hypothyroidism in children, cretinism, for instance, it will lead to the mental growth problems, right? Mental growth, physical growth, sexual growth, everything gets hampered in such conditions. So, on careful examination, you will understand that each of these functions, they involve certain important metabolic aspect, and this is what defines Pitta and Agni according to Ayurveda. Now, it will not be uh, irrelevant if we discuss the five types of pitta while discussing the endocrine and metabolism in Ayurveda. So, first one among them is Pachaka Pitta. Pittam Panchatmakam Tatra Pakvamashaya Madhyagam. This Pachaka Pitta is located in between Pakvashaya and Amashaya. Panchabhutatmakatve api yat Taijasa Gunodayat. Though it is made up of five Mahabhutas, the Tejo Mahabhuta is dominant in this, and hence Tyakta Dravatvam, it is devoid of fluidity. Hence, it is also known as Agni, Pakadi Karmana, because it performs the functions like Paka or digestion. It is also known as Anala or Agni, Anala Shabditam. Pachatyannam vibhajate, Pachati annam, it digests the food. Vibhajate sarakittau prathak tatha. It also divides the products of digestion into Sara and Kitta. Sara is the nutritive portion which is useful. Kitta is something that is not absorbable and which has to be excreted. So, pachatyannam vibhajate sarakittau prathak tatha. Tatrasthamev pittanam sheshanamapyanugraham karoti baladanena pachakam nama tat smritam. This also is supportive to all other types of pitta, because ultimately all the functions in the human body are possible only when the gut is functioning normally, because without proper digestion the absorption cannot happen. Without proper absorption, metabolism cannot happen. Without proper metabolism, growth and nourishment cannot happen. So digestion has received importance in Ayurveda. So Pachaka Pitta is almost equal to Jataragni, only difference being the fluidity. So when the Pachaka Pitta becomes devoid of fluidity, it attains the name Agni or Jataragni, and it is located between stomach and large intestine. Hence, it is representative of the functions of mainly the small intestine, and it is responsible for digestion. Hence, according to the contemporary physiology, all the amylolytic, proteolytic, lipolytic enzymes in the gut, all the gut hormones like cholecystokinin, secretin, gastrin, all local hormones of the gut like histamine, somatostatin, all such chemical entities should be included under Pachaka Pitta, and that is how the Pachaka Pitta can be understood. Even though the site of release of Pachaka Pitta and Acha Pitta is one and same, that is Pachamanashaya, they are not identical. These are two different entities, because Pachaka Pitta is devoid of fluidity, whereas Acha Pitta is liquid in nature, because Acham iti aghanam, this is what has been explained by Chakrapani. So this being liquid or being devoid of liquid is the factor that differentiates between Pachaka Pitta and Acha Pitta. Doshas released during Avasthapaka stage are not Dhatu Rupi doshas but are Malarupi doshas, and that is why Acha Pitta is representative of the Malarupi Pitta, which is the Mala of Rakta, which again has been discussed in my earlier lecture on hemopoietic system physiology. Now, this is regarding the Sadhaka Pitta. Buddhi, Medha, Abhimanadyehi, Abhipretartha Sadhanat, Sadhakam, Hridgatam, Pittam. This is from Ashtanga Hridaya. Buddhi, the discretion. Buddhi means discretion, discretionary abilities. Buddhi. Medha is intelligence. Abhimana, self-respect and self-confidence. Abhipretartha sadhanat, achieving something that one desires. So these are the functions that have been ascribed to Sadhaka Pitta. And if you carefully understand these functions, they are all higher intellectual functions, and many of them are related to motivation and learning, and the modern biochemistry and modern physiology informs us that neurotransmitters in the brain that influence emotions, mood, learning, and motivation include certain important chemicals like dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, GABA, glutamate, and so on. So each of these neurotransmitter has got some important function to play in the domains concerned with the higher intellectual functions and emotions and also mood. For instance, serotonin, it helps in memory and learning and contributes to feelings of well-being and happiness. Dopamine is associated with the pleasure and reward center, and it is linked with motivation and memory. Glutamate, it helps in cognitive functioning, alertness, memory, and learning. Norepinephrine assists in fight or flight mechanism, and also it helps in moderating the mood by alleviating depression and anxiety. And GABA acts as the main inhibitory neurotransmitter and helps in increasing the feelings of calmness and relaxation, and it reduces stress and pain and improves the sleep and concentration. The next pitta is Alochaka pitta. Alochaka pitta is located in the visual apparatus. Rupalochanatah smrutam drikstham alochakam. This is again from Ashtanga Hridaya. And in Bhela Samhita, it is further explained that Alochaka pitta may be of two types: Drishtir Vaisheshika and Buddhir Vaisheshika, or Chakshur Vaisheshika and Buddhir Vaisheshika. So Alochaka pitta is ultimately related to the perception of normal vision, and there are certain photosensitive pigments in the retina, and photochemistry is involved in vision, and chemical transmission involved in visual pathways. This is neurochemistry. So photochemistry and neurochemistry of vision can represent the Chakshur Vaisheshika and Buddhir Vaisheshika Alochaka pitta, and the two figures in this slide, they represent the photochemistry of vision on one side, and on the other side the picture represents the neurochemistry of vision, because ultimately the vision has to be perceived by the brain, right? Simply the photoreceptor functioning is not sufficient. So this could represent the Alochaka pitta. Similarly, Ranjaka pitta, Amashayashriyam pittam, Ranjakam Rasaranjanat. The location of Ranjaka pitta, according to Vagbhata, is stomach. According to Sushrita, it is located in liver and spleen. And the role of liver and spleen has been already explained in my earlier lecture. The lecture on homeopathic system, we have discussed why the Ranjaka pitta is located in liver and spleen. Ultimately, the Ranjana karma, Ranjana is to give color. The Ranjaka pitta gives red color to the rasa. So it adds the red colored pigment in the rasa, and that is nothing but the hemoglobin, which is captured in the RBCs. So for the normal RBC maturation, we need vitamin B12, and vitamin B12 can be absorbed even though it is present in the sufficient amounts in the food. It can be absorbed only when there is sufficient secretion of gastric intrinsic factor or Cassell's intrinsic factor. In the absence of this intrinsic factor, the vitamin B12 cannot be absorbed, and this is the specific role that the stomach plays in the absorption of vitamin B12, and vitamin B12 is very important in the DNA synthesis and maturation in the RBC precursors, and hence the Ranjaka pitta is very important. The other type of pitta happens to be Bhrajaka pitta. Tvakstham Bhrajakam Bhrajanat Tvachaha. Bhrajana is to give luster to the skin, to give normal complexion to the skin and luster to the skin, normal consistency of the skin. But along with that, Sushruta has mentioned some more functions of Bhrajaka Pitta. He says that Yattu Tvachi Pittam Tasmin Bhrajako Agniriti Samnya. So Abhyanga Parisheka Avagaha Alepanadinam Kriya Dravyanam Pakta Chayanam Cha Prakashakaha. So Abhyanga Parisheka Avagaha Lepanadinam Kriya Dravyanam Pakta means the medicines that are applied over the skin in different forms, maybe abhyanga, where you use oils, medicated oils on the skin and massage. Avagaha is again a large part of the body is immersed in the medicated liquids. Alepa, the pastes of medicinal plants mainly are applied over the skin. The thin paste applied over the skin is called lepa or alepa. And so such drugs, whenever they are applied over the skin, they are metabolized in the skin. And this is the function of Bhrajaka Pitta according to this reference. And we know that most common drug metabolizing enzymes are expressed in the skin also. Expression of cytochromes P450, flavin monooxygenases, glutathione S transferases, N acetyl transferases, and sulfotransferases in human skin and skin cells has been documented. These are the enzymes that help in the metabolism of drugs that are applied on the skin. The epidermis synthesizes the hormones and vitamins such as vitamin D. The apocrine, eccrine and sebaceous glands, they release secretions and contribute to the barrier function of the skin. The acid pH and pheromones are responsible for body odor and so on. So all these are the different metabolic functions of the skin. So skin also has got several metabolic functions, and all those metabolic functions can be included under Bhrajaka Pitta. Now once again we'll come back to the Agni and the three sets of Agni. As I earlier discussed, the Agni has been categorized into three steps or three stages or three sets which act on the food that one consumes in a particular sequence. So first is the Jaఠragni, which acts in the gut, and second is Bhutagni, and lastly the Dhatwagni at the cellular level or tissue level. So this is the exact sequence in which these Agnis, they act on the food. So they can be equated with the digestion, intermediary metabolism and the cellular level of metabolism. The intermediary metabolism can be understood through Bhutagni. As we have already discussed, the digestion and the role of Pachaka Pitta, which is also known as Jaఠragni. Now we are moving on to understand the intermediary metabolism. So Bhauma, Apya, Agneya, Vayavyaha, Panchoshmana, Sanabhasaha, Panchahara Gunan, Swan, Parthivadin, Pachantihi, Yathaswam, Swam Chapushnanti, Dehe Dravya Gunaha, Prithak, Parthivaha, Parthivaneva, Sheshaha, Sheshamscha Kristanashaha. So what is the meaning of this verse? Bhauma, Apya, Agneya, Vayavyaha, Panchoshmana, Sanabhasaha. So Bhauma, Apya, Agneya, Vayavya and Nabhasa. These are the five Agnis which act on particular Mahabhutas. So for one Mahabhuta there is one particular Agni. And what do they do? Panchahara Gunan, Swan, Parthivadin, Pachanti. So they digest or they transform these five different components of the food. So Bhauma Agni acts on the Parthiva Amsha. Apya Agni acts on the Up Mahabhuta dominant fraction of the food. Vayavya Agni acts on the components that are dominant in Vayu Mahabhuta. So this is how corresponding Dhatwagnis act on the corresponding respective component of the food depending on the dominant Mahabhuta. And then what happens? Yatha swam swam cha pushnanti dehe dravya gunaha prathak. So similar entities can nourish the similar tissues in the body. For example, the bone contains calcium, and only calcium can get deposited in the bones and can contribute to the bone strength. Other substances cannot nourish the bone. Similarly, muscles, they are very rich in proteins. So proteins are required to nourish the muscles, to strengthen the muscles. So muscles require proteins. Anything else other than proteins cannot nourish the muscles. So this is the meaning here, right? Parthivaha parthivaneva sheshaha sheshamscha kristhanashaha. So parthiva entities in the body can be nourished only through the parthiva dravyas that are present in the food. Now, the food may not contain all the amino acids that are required for the synthesis of muscle protein, for example. Then certain amino acids are required to be synthesized in the human body. Similarly, there are multiple metabolic entities that might be required for different functions and different structures which may not be found in the food. This food, when undergoes digestion and when the digested portion gets absorbed in the liver, these entities again further undergo metabolism. And here in the liver, the different forms of metabolic products are manufactured, and then they can be further utilized for different purposes. And this is what is called intermediary metabolism. And this is exactly is the role of Bhutagni. So liver and its role in metabolism. The liver plays several roles in almost all sorts of metabolism, maybe carbohydrate metabolism, maybe protein metabolism, maybe lipid metabolism, and so on. For instance, the protein synthesis, urea synthesis, glycogenesis, gluconeogenesis, lipoprotein synthesis, cholesterol synthesis, glycolysis, oxidation of lipids, and so on and so forth. There are several different complex transformative steps that are carried out in the hepatocytes of the liver. And all these steps, they ultimately lead to the formation of certain products which can be finally utilized by the cells and other tissues. For instance, this is the glucose. Here it shows the role of liver in transforming the glucose, and different pathways may be there which are involved in tackling how the glucose is transformed. Similarly, this picture shows what happens to the amino acids. So they also undergo maybe transamination, deamination, and so on in the liver, and protein synthesis can happen. And these proteins are multiple types of proteins which are utilized by all tissues for their tissue building. Similarly, fats, they also undergo several steps of metabolism, maybe beta oxidation pathway, and so on. So all this can happen in the liver, and finally these products can be utilized for different purposes, maybe for energy purpose, maybe for tissue building purpose by different tissues or cells. So this is how the intermediary metabolism can be represented in Ayurveda. Now what happens when the Bhutagni Paka is over? We have seen earlier that Avastha Paka is produced because of the action of Jatharagni. So Avastha Paka is the product of Jatharagni, whereas Vipaka is the product of Bhutagnipaka. This is the fundamental difference between the two. Another difference is that during Avasthapaka, the doshas that are formed, for instance, during Madhura Avasthapaka, Kapha is released. During Amla Avasthapaka, Pitta is released. And during Katu Avasthapaka, Vayu is released. These Vayu, Pitta and Kapha are Malarupi doshas. Whereas in Vipaka, again there are three types of Vipaka: Madhura, Amla and Katu. And again there is release of Kapha, Pitta and Vata. But here the Kapha, Pitta and Vata that are released are actually the Dhaturupi doshas. This is the difference. So there are two differences between Jatharagni-paka and Bhutagni-paka. Jatharagni-paka leads to Avasthapaka and Bhutagni-paka leads to Vipaka. This is how we can clearly understand the differences. Shukraha Baddhavidmutro Vipako Vatalaha Katuhu. So Katu Vipaka has got specific effects on the body, like it decreases Shukra, it leads to the retention of Vit and Mutra, and it leads to the formation of Vata. Similarly, Madhura Vipaka is Srishta Mutra, it leads to the formation of Vit and Mutra. And Kapha Shukra Laha, it also increases the formation of Kapha and Shukra. Similarly, Pitta Krita Srishta Mutraha Pako Amlaha Shukra Nashanaha. Amla Vipaka is Shukra Nashana, and it leads to the formation of Vit and Mutra, and also it leads to the formation of Pitta. Tesham Guruhu Syat Madhuraha Katukamlo Ato Anya. Madhura Vipaka is also known as Guru Vipaka, and Katu and Amla Vipaka are also known as Laku Vipaka. Once again, to remind what we were discussing, Jatharagni represents the stage of hydrolysis in the gastrointestinal tract, which is also known as digestion. Bhutagni represents the intermediary metabolism, which is also known as preparatory phase according to the biochemistry. And Dhatvagni, it represents the metabolism at cellular level. So far we discussed Jatharagni and Bhutagni. Now we will take up the Dhatvagni. Saptabhir dhataro dhatavo dividham punaha yathaswam agnibhi pakam yanti kitta prasadavat. So again, there are 7 types of Agni which act at the cellular level or dhatu level, and they lead to the transformation of dhatu into Sarabhaga and again Kittabhaga. And this Sarabhaga nourishes the next dhatu, and Kittabhaga becomes the Dhatu Mala. And Sarabhaga again is of 2 types. One is the one that supports the other dhatus, and another one supports the Upadhatus. Sarabhaga is nutritive portion which either nourishes the Upadhatu or the successive dhatu, whereas the Kittabhaga becomes the Dhatu Mala. Pakam yanti Kitta Prasadavat. In Ashtanga Hridaya, there is a unique explanation regarding the relationship between Dhatvagni and its corresponding Dhatu. And it has been explained to be inversely proportional. The verse that explains this relationship reads as follows: Swasthanasthasya kayagnehe amsha dhatushu samshitaha tesham sadati diptibhyam dhatu vriddhi kshayodbhavaha. So the meaning of this verse is that Swasthanasthasya kayagnehe, Kayagni is Jatharagni, which is situated in its own site, but it has got its fractions situated in different dhatus. Amshaha dhatushu samshitaha tesham sada atidiptibhyam. Sada is less than optimal functioning, and atidipta is intensive functioning, excessive functioning. So this leads to dhatu vriddhi and dhatu kshaya respectively. धातु वृद्धि क्षयोद्भवः. So dhatu agni sada leads to dhatu vruddhi, and dhatu agni atidipti leads to dhatu kshaya. So these amshas which are located in dhatus, they are nothing but the dhatu agnis, and their excessive functioning leads to the kshaya or depletion of the corresponding dhatu, and the diminished functioning, less than optimal functioning of this dhatu agni leads to abnormal growth of dhatu or excessive growth of abnormal dhatu. This unique relationship is very important from the endocrinology point of view, because there is always something called negative feedback mechanism in the endocrinology, and sometimes, for example, the hyperparathyroidism. In hyperparathyroidism, the bones, they grow weaker and weaker. There is osteoporosis. Though the optimal level of parathyroid hormone is essential for normal bone growth, but if it becomes excessive, then there is loss of bony compactness. So the transformation process of one component into another component with the help of Agni is very similar to the different metabolic pathways, and this has been explained by Chakrapani as Kshira Dadhi Nyaya. Tatra rasah swagni pachamano raktatam yati raktam mamsatam ityadi पूर्व पूर्व धातु परिणामात उत्तर धातु उत्पादः. So this is the theory that explains that the dhatus are nourished in a form of transformative mechanism. So one dhatu getting converted into another dhatu. Yatha, he gives the example of kshirat dadhi bhavati. The analogy that he gives is kshira and dadhi. Kshira is milk and dadhi is yogurt or curd. So kshira becomes curd. Dadhno navanitam. The dadhi can be converted into butter. Navanitad ghritam. When you heat the butter, you get the ghee or clarified butter. And ghritat, ghritamandha. So this is how you can go on transforming one dhatu into another dhatu, or one component into another component. And here, what is the factor that transforms one component into another component? It is nothing but the Agni. So this is very, very similar to the transformations of different entities through the different transformative pathways. Thank you.